Hey guys, Jason Eastley from Politicus USA and the Daily here. Both on Substack. Please subscribe. Our video today is about something really important that Senate Democrats did that, to my surprise, has gotten zero, absolutely no mainstream media attention. Senate Democrats reintroduced the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. They held a press conference, lots of people there, advocacy organizations, no mainstream media coverage, as in none. No MSNBC, no CNN, not even Fox to yell at them about it. Even C-SPANs were off covering taped House stuff in a live Senate session. So if you want to know what's going on and why it happened, let's check out the speech by Reverend Senator Raphael Warnock, who gave a really great speech about voting rights that I want to highlight. We pick up after the introduction. He's beginning his remarks after thanking Dick Durbin.
As I often say, a vote is a kind of prayer for the world we desire for ourselves and for our children. And our prayers are stronger when we pray together. Democracy is the political enactment of a spiritual idea. This notion that each of us has within ourselves a spark of the divine. If you're not given to that kind of language, simply put it this way: we all have value. And if we all have value, we ought to have a voice in the direction of our country. We ought to.
That's a really great point. I mean, if every human being has value, then every human being deserves a voice, and we get our voice through the vote. The vote is critical and fundamental to the humanity of people.
Have a vote. And so with all of the problems that are facing our country, none is more important and none is more urgent than our voting rights, than preserving the democracy. Nothing is more important right now than passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and we need to get that done now. Healthcare is critical. Climate change, as we stand in this heat. Whole range of issues. Workforce development, people's prosperity, housing. But here's the thing: voting rights are preservative of all other rights. The democracy is the very house in which we live. It is the framework in which we get to fight.
Voting rights are preservative of all other rights. If you don't have the right to vote, you can't make change. If you can't make change, then things don't get better. Your government doesn't listen to you. And as we see what happens with the Republican majority and the Republican president, this is what happens. These kind of legislation, like the One Big Beautiful Bill, the misnamed bill, is now the One Big Beautiful Law, which is a completely horrible law, is what happens when people's needs are put aside for the needs of special interest and the politicians themselves.
For the things that we care about. There's so many places all around the world where you don't get to fight, you don't get to use your voice in the way that we have taken for granted, and these last 7 months have reminded us that we ought not take any of it for granted. We are literally in a fight for the life of the republic. We're in a fight to make sure that everybody has a voice and that we don't give in to the authoritarian movement that is afoot right now in our country.
Okay, this is so important. This is really important. Where was the media? Where was the media on this? If this is the fundamental fight for human rights in this country through the vote, where was the media? Where's the coverage of this? Why isn't anyone talking about it? Let's continue.
So much is at stake. And right now, even as we stand here pushing this John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, lawmakers in Texas are being called back into a special session. Think about that. In Texas, in the middle of July, they're going back into session in order to redraw the maps in the middle of the decade. Not only are they saying the quiet part out loud, they are acting on it with a vengeance in real time. And so just think about that. The very folk who just took health care away from 16 million Americans The very people who just passed legislation that will cause just about everybody's health care premiums to go up, about 20 million Americans, are now busy trying to make sure that those Americans do not have the ability to fire them. They've deprived people of a doctor, and now they're trying to doctor the voting maps.
This is what happens in places where democracy is under attack. See, fundamentally, Republicans have taken away fundamental rights like healthcare. They did it to women. Now they're doing it to the poor. Now they're doing it to people on Medicaid, working poor. And this is exactly how it happens without voting rights. Now that they've done something unpopular and they're facing potentially losing an election, they're not trying to go back and reshape the electorate so that certain people who can't vote against them lose their right to vote.
That's why we have to pass the Voting Rights Advancement Act, and we need to do it now. And so instead of representing the people's needs, they are spending the next year and a half trying to redraw the lines, squeezing the people out of their democratic system so they no longer have a vote and a voice. This is what you call turning democracy upside down. So that rather than the people choosing their representatives, politicians get to pick their own people. This has always been a bipartisan piece of legislation. The last time it passed, George W. Bush, a Republican, was president. It passed the Senate without a single no vote. And the question becomes, what has changed? And so times are tough, but we are not about to give up on passing the Voting Rights Act. I live in Atlanta, and because I live in Atlanta, I'm used to this heat. But also because I live in Atlanta, I walk among civil rights giants every single day. And right about now, I think about my friend, Ambassador Andrew Young, who worked alongside John Lewis. And Andy Young tells a story that I think about a lot these days. He said that when they passed the Civil Rights Bill into law, Martin Luther King Jr. went with his lieutenants to meet with the president. And as they sat to meet with President Johnson and Dr.
This is a really interesting story.
King began to say, Mr. President, we need a voting rights law. The president said, I know you're right. It'd be great to get that done, but I can't get that done right now. I've already had to spend too much political capital just getting the Civil Rights Bill over the finish line. There's no way, Martin. I just don't have the power to do it right now. The President of the United States kept saying over and over again, I just don't have the power. When they left the meeting, the staff was feeling all dejected, and they said, what are we going to do now? The president says he doesn't have the power. And Dr. King looked at the staff and he said, well, if the president doesn't have the power, I guess we're going to have to go and find the president some power. And so that's why all of these groups that are standing behind me are so important, because we understand this is not about the people in power. It's about the power that's in the people.
And that's an important point. We're gonna end the video right here because this is Bob Rosenrock's end. That's an important point. I mean, this is everything you've seen from the protests to the legal pushback, everything. It's coming from people. It's not coming from the institutions. There's no Democrat at the top of the party who's swooping in to lead all this. This is people-based. And what Senate Democrats are doing here is they are bringing back a bill that would reimpose the federal oversight of states that have had voting rights violations in the past. They're also expanding, the bill also expands the ability of courts to police for voting rights. And the third really important thing it does is it makes states get pre-clearance anytime they want to change their voter ID or redistricting laws. In other words, these states that have had voting rights violations would not be able to just willy-nilly put in laws to restrict the vote or gerrymander. Now, we all know this bill isn't going to pass this Congress. We all know that. So people who are going to say, "Oh, this bill won't pass," what's the point of talking about this? Well, the point of talking about this is that Democrats are in a good position to win back the House, and maybe even the Senate next year. So they're going to propose this bill again and again and again. And when they get a Democratic president and a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate again, let's say in 2029, they will have the ability to pass this bill. And you might say, but Jason, the last time they had those three, they didn't pass this bill. Well, remember, bills like this were stopped because Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin in the Senate refused to change the filibuster. Those two senators are gone. So the big thing you need to do is, if any Senate candidate out there, ask them if they support modifying the filibuster to pass voting rights. Voting rights are fundamental. We should be talking about this. It would be great to get rid of Citizens United, but the Supreme Court is never going to uphold any legislation that gets rid of Citizens United. The John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act would is compliant with the Supreme Court's 2013 Shelby ruling. So, as it's written, it has a good chance of surviving a legal challenge. And this is where we need to go. It's about voting rights. You can't have anything till you have people have the right to vote. I'm Jason Eastley. If you're not subscribed to Politicus USA on the daily, please do so. It's only $6 a month. It's great. You will enjoy every minute of it. You'll get great content every day from either Politicus USA or the daily. You can pick which one you want to subscribe to. Please subscribe. Please support our work. Until next time, thanks and bye bye.